One of the things I mentioned in the arena explanation video is the thing that we're going to do to make the arena distributed is we're going to have two different ways to run the arena. The first way is as a host, and the second one is as a client. So the host is responsible for running, figuring out, first of all, it's going to be sitting on a port waiting for someone to say, hey, run these games. Okay? And so it's going to be responsible for listening to, say, the web server, or for a separate application that we make to say, hey, we have this many players, go ahead and do a 1v1 tournament, and then the host is responsible for generating the bracket, it's responsible for accepting the zip files that have all the code in them, and then it's responsible for sending things for the client to do. And so what the client is going to do is actually run the games. So that's why they're separate. So basically, if we have multiple machines, we only need one host. And so we're going to designate that host address at the top of the page, and it's going to be a constant. So right now I have my own laptop's IP plugged in. And so the check that we're going to have down here is if our IP is the same as the arena host address, which is the constant we had up there, then we're going to run the host. Otherwise, we're going to run the client version. Okay. So let me explain why how this is working. Okay. So this first line is just printing that we're starting the code. Okay. So this will be in a log file and in the console as well. Okay. The second line is getting the host name. So this is a little bit higher up, or a little bit lower than IP address, because you can have basically multiple IP addresses for the same computer. You can only have one host name. Okay, the IP address can be, say, localhost, which would be 127.0.0.1. You could also have your IPv6 version. You could have your IPv4 version, and so basically there's those two addresses at your router. So on your local network, like that's in your house, and you also have one global one for what your router is going out to. So let's say someone in Kansas wants to contact my computer, they have to go to first that global address and then to our router, and then from the router it can then be ported to my computer. So you could have potentially 6, maybe more than that IP addresses, but the one we care about is the one that's local to us. So say we're running at the school, everyone on the school is connected to the same router, or I guess I should say network, because there could be multiple routers at the school. And so we can all connect to each other just using these 192 addresses. So let me run this and I'll show you how we have more than one address here, and that's why. So I'll put a breakpoint here and I'll press play. It'll go into debug mode and it'll stop at this line. Okay, so we can check that our host name is desktop. So that's basically my computer name. Okay, so there's only one computer name for my computer, so that makes sense. And so now we're going to check the IP addresses. So that would be my IP. So we have 4 of them right now. Okay, so this first one is the IPv6 version. Okay, and these other two, I'm actually not sure what these come from. I guess they're V6 addresses as well. So that's interesting. But so the one we care about is this one down here, which is our internal router address, which is 192.168.0.13. And so this now is going to parse that string that I have at the top into an IP address. And we're going to see that this one is also 192.168.0.13 now. And so now if we check to see if basically this arena host address is in our list of IPs because, like I said, we can have many of them. That's why it's .contains and not equals equals. Then we're going to run the host. Okay, and so that's how that works. Right now, there's no code in either of them. This was just kind of an intro to get that all working correctly. But the first thing we're going to do is start an FTP server. So to accept zip files, you can send files over the internet in many different ways, but ideally the best way is the file transfer protocol. So we have an implementation of the FTP server that I can go into in another video, but for right now it's not really important. You can just think of it as something that's going to transfer files. And so in the host I'll run start FTP server. And it's not going to show up here because I haven't made it static yet. You can't have a non-static method in a static method. Okay, and so it'll come down here, it'll log, hey, we're starting this FTP server, and then it's going to, I guess the server should also be static as well. Okay, and it's going to start the FTP server, and it's going to do it at our host address, and it's at our host port, which is 21 for FTP. Or you can actually use 20 if you're using an active mode FTP or using a passive mode FTP, so it should be port 21. And then we're setting a directory to store all our files in, and we're setting it to be equal to documents arena files. And then we just hit start, and then it should be running and waiting for file transfers from outside people. Let's see if we get any errors. You'll notice that we have to allow access to through a firewall to allow these files to come in. You don't just want some rando to be able to just randomly upload a file to your computer, so the firewall's blocking it. But since we actually want files to come into our computer, we have to let that through the firewall, basically. Okay, and the reason that stopped is it ran to the bottom here, it started the server, and there was no other code, so it stopped executing. So we'll just put a while true loop at the end here. And so the FTP server runs on a separate thread, so it'll still be able to run while we have this while true blocking call kind of thing. Okay, so now it's continuously running. Let's see